Have you ever felt trapped in your own family, burdened with responsibilities you never agreed to take on? Some people are born carrying the weight of their family, not because they want to, but because they have no other choice. This is the story of Ava, a young woman shackled by unfair family obligations, caught in a cycle of endless sacrifice, only to realize that family is not always the safest place. Ava spent her entire youth taking care of others. She worked herself to exhaustion to support her parents and older brother, people who constantly demanded from her but never truly appreciated her sacrifices. She convinced herself that it was her duty, that supporting her family was a sacred obligation. But then, one day, everything changed. A devastating event forced her to see the truth. The very people she had given everything for never considered her a priority. She stood at a crossroads, continue drowning in endless responsibilities, or find the courage to let go and live the life she truly wanted. And so began a journey, a dramatic, painful, yet powerful transformation, a story of betrayal, self-worth, and the fight to reclaim one's own life. Ava had to face hard truths and make the biggest decision of her life. Follow this story, not just Ava's, but perhaps your own as well. If you've ever felt trapped by family expectations, share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to see more powerful stories like this. At 27, Ava never imagined she would become the sole financial provider for her family. As a child, she pictured a future filled with travel, a stable career, and an independent, fulfilling life. But reality had other plans. She had no time to enjoy any of those dreams, because her family's entire burden rested on her shoulders. Ava worked at an advertising firm, a high-pressure industry that provided a decent salary. However, the money she earned never truly belonged to her. Every paycheck she received was immediately drained, most of it sent to her mother to cover bills, groceries, and, most importantly, Leo's expensive therapy sessions. Leo, the overindulged, unsuccessful brother Leo, was 3 years older than Ava, but their lives couldn't be more different. He used to work at a financial firm until he was passed over for a promotion. Outraged, he quit on impulse, believing he deserved better. "I dedicated years to that company, and they gave the position to some newbie instead of me," Leo had shouted at Ava the day it happened. At first, Ava felt sorry for him. She believed he just needed some time to recover. But then a month passed, then 3 months, then a year. And Leo was still there, lying on the couch doing nothing. Their mother always excused him. "He just needs more time, Ava. He's trying, but he needs his family's support." And that support always came from Ava. Everything fell on Ava's shoulders. She lost count of the times her mother called her with the same excuses. "Ava, sweetheart, the electricity bill was higher this month. Can you send a little extra?" "Ava, Leo needs another therapy session. I know you've already helped a lot, but just this one more time, okay?" "Ava, can you cover the rent this month? Your father isn't feeling well and can't work as much." The requests never stopped. It became a routine, a never-ending cycle. She couldn't remember the last time she bought something for herself, the last time she took a real vacation, the last time she slept through the night without worrying about bills. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was the fact that her own family never even cared to ask how she was doing. No one ever asked if she was tired, if she was okay. They just needed her to help, and she always did. The injustice. Even outsiders could see one day Ava was venting to her best friend Mia when she accidentally revealed how much she was supporting her family. Mia was stunned. "Wait, are you telling me you pay for everything?" Mia's eyes widened. "What about your brother?" "What does he do?" Ava gave a tired smile. "Leo is still looking for the right job. He doesn't want to settle for something beneath his qualifications." Mia crossed her arms. her voice sharper than ever. Ava, this isn't your family needing you. This is them using you. Ava opened her mouth to protest, but stopped, because deep down, she knew Mia was right. It wasn't that Ava had never thought about it before. She had. But accepting the truth that her own family was taking advantage of her was too painful to bear. The seed of change. That conversation planted a question in Ava's mind. Was she really living for herself? Or was she only existing to serve others? She started paying closer attention to her family. Her mother could work part-time, but she chose not to. Leo could take a temporary job, but he refused because it was beneath him. Her father was still healthy enough to work, yet he let Ava and her mother handle everything. This wasn't about supporting family anymore. This was injustice. For the first time in her life, Ava asked herself a question she had never dared to consider before. What would happen if I stopped helping them? That thought haunted her, and deep inside, she knew a major change was coming. Ava had started to recognize the injustice in how her family treated her, but that didn't mean change would come easily. When she tried to set boundaries and reclaim her freedom, she quickly realized something. Her family had no intention of letting her go. The breaking point 1. After noon, while Ava was at work, her mother called. This time, her voice wasn't sweet or pleading like before. It was sharp, accusatory. Ava, have you forgotten your responsibilities? Her mother's voice cut through the phone. This family raised you, and now you think you can just abandon your brother? Ava felt her frustration boil over. Mom, I've done enough. Leo is a grown man. He needs to take care of himself. I can't keep working myself to exhaustion to support someone who refuses to try. Silence hung in the air. Then her mother let out a slow, deliberate sigh. If you won't help us anymore, then don't expect this family to stand by you. The words stabbed into Ava's heart like a knife. She had spent her entire youth sacrificing for her family, and now, just because she wanted a life of her own, they were willing to turn their backs on her. She hung up without another word. For the first time in her life, Ava felt like she wasn't part of her family anymore. But instead of feeling lonely, she felt something unexpected: relief. For the first time, she was free. She was finally ready to walk her own path, even if it meant facing the pain of losing the people she had once loved most. After Ava made the decision to step away from the burdens her family had placed on her, her life finally started to feel stable. For the first time in years, she wasn't waking up to stressful calls from her mother. She wasn't watching her paycheck disappear into her family's expenses. She was finally living for herself. But just a few weeks later, something happened. Something that dragged her right back to the people she had been trying to escape. The phone call that changed everything. It was a Monday morning like any other. Ava rushed to get ready for work, sipping her coffee as she checked her emails. Then her phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. She hesitated, then picked up. "Is this Ava?" a serious voice asked. "We're calling from St. Mary's Hospital. Your father has been admitted in critical condition. Can you come immediately?" Ava froze. Her father? The man who had never truly cared about her, who had stood by silently while her mother and brother used her like an ATM. But he was still her father. 15 minutes later, she arrived at the hospital, her heart pounding as she rushed toward the emergency room. Her mother sat in the waiting area, her eyes swollen from crying. Leo stood beside her, arms crossed, his expression tense. "How is he?" Ava asked, her voice dry. Her mother looked up, clearly surprised that Ava had come so quickly. "The doctor said he had a mild stroke," she explained. "He's stable, but he'll need therapy and extended care." Ava felt a tightness in her chest. No matter how distant she had felt from her family, this was still painful. Then the doctor stepped out. "Your father is stable, but he'll need physical therapy and ongoing treatment for a full recovery, he informed them. Her mother nodded frantically, still wiping away tears. We'll do everything we can to help him recover, but we really need Ava's help. She turned to her daughter, her eyes full of expectation. Can you cover the medical costs, sweetheart? The family is struggling. The moment of truth. Ava closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing. So after everything, they still only saw her as a source of money. She looked at her mother, then at Leo, who stood there arms crossed, showing no guilt, no gratitude, just the expectation that Ava would fix things. Ava knew that if she said yes, nothing would ever change. She would fall right back into the cycle. She took a deep breath. No, she said firmly. I'm not paying for anything. Her mother's face froze in shock. Ava, what are you saying? This is your father, your family. How can you turn your back on us? Ava's voice remained calm, but strong. I'm not turning my back on anyone, but I cannot carry this weight alone anymore. Leo is also your son. Why doesn't he help? Leo scoffed. I have my own struggles, Ava. I can't just... Ava laughed bitterly. Oh, so you can't, but I can. I also have my own life, Leo. I am not this family's personal bank anymore. The hallway went silent. Her mother shook her head, tears spilling down her face. Ava, please. Just this once. Help us one last time. Ava looked at her mother, then at Leo, then down at her own hands. How many times had she heard just this once before? How many times had she given everything, only to be met with ingratitude and expectation? She knew that if she gave in now, she would never escape. But if she refused, she would have to accept that she was truly cutting ties. She took a deep breath, then spoke the words that would change everything. I'm sorry, Mom, but this time I'm not helping. Then she turned and walked away, leaving her mother and Leo standing there, stunned and speechless. Walking away without looking back. As Ava stepped out of the hospital, her heart felt heavy, but lighter than ever before. For the first time in her life, she had chosen herself. Her father would be taken care of. He had insurance, resources, and other people who could help. She was not their only lifeline. But most importantly, she knew that if she had given in today, she would have become a financial puppet once again. She pulled out her phone and saw several missed calls from her mother and Leo. Then, she blocked their numbers. She knew that from this moment on, her life finally belonged to her. As Ava stepped out of the hospital, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. But deep down, she knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. She had finally dared to say no for the first time in her life. But did she really think her family would accept that? She knew the answer all too well. Never. The first days of silence. For the next 3 days, Ava's phone didn't stop buzzing with messages and calls from her mother and Leo. At first, the messages were filled with guilt-tripping and blame. Ava, what are you thinking? Your father needs you. You're so selfish. I never thought you'd abandon your family like this. Leo can't handle everything alone. Come back. But when she didn't respond, the messages shifted to begging. Please, just this once. Help us. Your father would be so disappointed to know how you're treating your family. Ava stayed strong. She knew that if she responded, if she gave in even a little, she would be sucked right back into the cycle. So this time, she didn't reply. She blocked their numbers. She deleted every message. And for the first time in years, she chose peace. But it wasn't over. Yet a week later, an email landed in her inbox from an unfamiliar address. But the moment she opened it, she recognized the writing immediately. It was from her mother. Subject, Come home. Ava, I don't know what you're thinking, but you can't keep doing this. Family is forever. You can't just abandon us because of a little pressure. Do you know that your father cried when he heard you refuse to help? I've never seen him like that before. If you still have any love for this family, please come back. Mom Ava stared at the email, then slowly closed her laptop. Before, something like this would have broken her. But now, she felt nothing. A little pressure? She whispered, laughing bitterly. Her entire life had been one endless pressure from them. And even now, her mother still refused to acknowledge what they had put her through. But Ava wasn't going to explain herself. She didn't need to. Learning to live for herself, without the constant financial burden of her family, Ava finally had time to think about herself, something she had never been able to do before. She signed up for a yoga class, something she had always wanted to try but never had time for. She took a weekend trip to a quiet seaside town where she sat on the beach, listened to the waves, and let herself truly rest. For the first time in years, she spent money on herself without guilt. For the first time ever, she got paid and didn't have to immediately send it away. She was finally living, not just surviving. The final confrontation. But just when Ava thought she was free, her past came knocking. Literally. One evening, as she walked home from work, she spotted a figure standing outside her apartment building. Her mother. Ava froze, her heart pounding. She hadn't expected this. Her mother's eyes were tired, but her posture was firm. Ava, you can't keep running from this, she said, her voice trembling but determined. I won't leave until you hear me out. Ava knew this was the final battle she had been avoiding, but this time, she was ready. Ava stood at the entrance of her apartment, facing her mother with a calmness she had never felt before. She had known this moment would come, but she hadn't expected it so soon. Mom, I've made myself clear. I will not live the life this family expects of me. I can't keep sacrificing myself forever. Her mother looked at her, disappointment clear in her eyes. Ava, don't you understand? Family is everything. If you turn your back on us, you'll have no one left. Ava let out a bitter laugh. Do you really think I ever had anyone? For years, I was always there, always giving. But did anyone ever truly care about me? When I was exhausted, did anyone ask if I was okay? When I worked myself to the bone and sent home every paycheck, did anyone ever tell me I could rest? Silence. Her mother's eyes wavered for a moment, as if she wanted to deny it, but she couldn't. Then she shook her head, her voice turning sharp. Ava, you can't be this selfish. You owe this family. We raised you, fed you, put you through school. You have a good job now because of us. And now, when we need you, you turn away? Ava took a deep breath. Mom, I don't owe anyone anything. I got my job because of my own hard work. I built my career on my own. And as for raising me, that was your responsibility as parents. No child should grow up feeling like they owe their family just for existing. Her words hit like a slap in the face. Her mother staggered back, disbelief written all over her face. You really think that? Yes, Ava said firmly, and I won't change my mind. Her mother stood frozen, tears spilling down her cheeks. If you do this, don't expect this family to welcome you back. Ava smiled sadly. Mom, this family never truly welcomed me in the first place. They only needed me when I was useful. Now that I'm not, they don't want me anymore. Then, without another word, she stepped inside her apartment and closed the door, leaving her mother standing alone in the darkness. True freedom. In the days that followed, Ava felt both heartache and relief. Heartache, because she knew her decision had disappointed her mother, but relief, because for the first time in her life, she was free. No more guilt-tripping calls, no more financial pressure, no more feeling responsible for the lives of others at the cost of her own. For the first time in years, Ava could breathe. She took time for herself, joined new activities, made friends who truly cared about her. Most importantly, she learned to value herself. A new beginning. One afternoon, Ava sat in her favorite cafe, gazing out the window as the city moved around her. She realized that life no longer felt so heavy. She no longer had to worry about sending money home. She no longer felt guilty for spending on herself. She had walked through hell, but now she was living. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of the future, because for the first time ever, she was in control of her own life. And that was the happiest ending she could ask for. After her confrontation with her mother, Ava felt something unexpected rising within her. It wasn't regret. It wasn't anger. It was relief. She had spent nearly her entire life trying to please her family, but for the first time, she had chosen herself. The first days of freedom. Without guilt-tripping calls and financial demands, Ava finally started to experience life for herself. She woke up without anxiety, knowing that no one was waiting to demand her help. She spent her money without guilt, no longer feeling like she had to justify every purchase. More than anything, she felt the weight of endless responsibility lift off her shoulders. She traveled to a quiet seaside town, allowing herself to relax without interruption. She joined an art class, something she had always wanted to do but never had the time for. She even met new people who genuinely cared about her, not because they needed something, but because they valued her. For the first time, Ava realized she was never truly alone. She didn't need a family that drained her to feel valuable. She could build a new life, surrounded by people who truly respected her. Family's attempt to return. 1 month later, Ava received a letter, not from her mother, from Leo. Ava, I know you're angry. I know I messed up. But can you give me a chance to explain? Things have changed since you left. I finally got a job. Not my dream job, but at least I'm taking care of myself. Mom also started working part-time, but she still hasn't accepted that you're really gone. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I hope one day we can talk again. If you're willing, send me a message. Leo. As Ava read the letter, a strange feeling rose in her chest. Maybe Leo finally understood what she had been trying to tell them all along. But she also knew one thing. She couldn't go back to the past. She placed the letter aside, not rushing to respond. Some relationships needed time to heal, and this time, she would put herself first. A future full of possibilities. A few months later, Ava enrolled in a business course. She wanted to learn how to invest and build a career for herself, one where she had control instead of being at the mercy of others. She also started writing, sharing her story with others who had experienced the same struggles. One afternoon, sitting in her favorite cafe, sipping coffee and watching the world move around her, she realized something. She had done something she once thought was impossible. She had let go of her past burdens. She had learned to love herself, and most importantly, she had taken back control of her own life. Ava smiled. For the first time in years, she felt truly at peace. The bigger message, behind Ava's story. Ava's story isn't just about family conflict. It's about setting boundaries. It's about breaking free from toxic expectations. It's about understanding that family should not mean endless sacrifice. Here are the lessons her journey teaches us. Set boundaries. You are not obligated to carry others forever, even if they are family. Unconditional sacrifice leads to exploitation. You don't owe anyone for existing. Parents have a duty to care for their children, but that doesn't mean children owe them their lives in return. Everyone deserves the right to pursue their own happiness. Family isn't always unconditional love. Sometimes, the people who hold us back the most are the ones closest to us. Walking away from toxic relationships isn't betrayal, it's self-preservation. No one can save you but yourself. Ava spent years living for others, but only when she chose herself did she find happiness. Freedom isn't selfish. It's a right. Choosing your own path isn't selfish. It's necessary. Helping others is noble, but not at the cost of your own well-being. Ava's story reminds us, you have the right to live your own life. No one, not even family, should have the power to take that away from you. Do you relate to Ava's story? Have you ever had to set boundaries with your family? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful life lessons. Together, we can create a community where everyone feels heard and understood.